we did 23. That's right. Okay. All right, Samādhi Pada, which is section 1 of the Yoga Sutras, sutra number 24. Klesha karma vipakashayer aparamrishta Puruṣa-viśeṣa Īśvara. Afflictions, by afflictions, misery, cause of misery, actions, activities, maturation or fruition, and seed germs or impressions of desires wherein desires sleep. Untouched spirit, an individual unit or center of divine consciousness, special, particular, ruler or presiding deity of a Brahmanda or solar system. Ishvara is a particular Puruṣa who is untouched by the afflictions of life, actions, and the results and impressions produced by these actions. Okay. In this sutra, Patanjali has given us two ideas with regard to Ishvara. Who is this Ishvara? What is this Ishvara? The first is that he is a Puruṣa, an individual unit of divine consciousness like the other Puruṣas. The second is that he is not bound by kleshas, karma, etc. like the other Puruṣas who are still involved in the cycle of evolution. As is pointed out later in section 4, Sutra 30, the Puruṣa becomes free from kleshas and karma on attaining kaivalya and the vehicle through which karma works. Karmasaya, or karmashaya, is destroyed in his case. In what respects then does Ishvara differ from the other mukta Puruṣas who have attained kaivalya and become liberated? The explanation sometimes given that he is a special kind of Puruṣa who has not gone through the evolutionary process and who was ever free and untouched by the afflictions at any time, is not very convincing and against the facts as they are known to occult science. The explanation of the discrepancy pointed out above lies in the fact that after the attainment of kaivalya, the evolutionary or unfolding process does not come to an end, but new vistas of achievement and work open out before the liberated Puruṣa. We can hardly comprehend the nature of this process or the work which it involves, but that future stages do exist beyond kaivalya is taken for granted in occult science. The further unfoldment of consciousness which takes place in the evolutionary progress beyond kaivalya passes through many stages and culminates ultimately in that tremendously high and glorious stage in which the Puruṣa becomes the presiding deity of a solar system. During the previous stages, he has occupied progressively higher and higher offices in the hierarchies which govern and guide the various activities in the solar system. The offices of the adhikari Puruṣas of different grades like Buddhas, Manus, etc. form, as it were, a ladder, the lower end of which rests on the rock of kaivalya, and its other end is lost in the unimaginable glory and splendor of divine consciousness. The office of Ishvara is one of the highest, if not the highest, rung of this ladder. He is the supreme ruler of a solar system or Brahmanda. It is in his consciousness that the solar system lives, moves, and has its being. The different planes of the solar system are his bodies, and the powers working the machinery of the solar system are his powers. In short, he is the reality whom we generally refer to as God. Now this is interesting. So this makes me remember a time. So I had this meditation experience once when I was sitting in the temple at the ashram. So I used to sit in the temple every night and I would meditate for 2 or 3 hours until the temple closed. And one time I came out of meditation and I had this I don't know how to describe it except that I felt like I was inside the mechanism of the universe. Like it was like a giant clock almost, and it was like, but it was smooth, and it was like expanding out in all directions, and it was just this sense of this move, that everything was perfectly coordinated and perfectly timed and perfectly in sync, and it was all moving, and I was like kind of like floating in that for a while as I was coming back into my body consciousness, and it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had in meditation. So I wonder if it has something to do with this, because that kind of sounds like what they're talking about, and well, it just reminds me of that. How many further stages of unfoldment of consciousness exist between this stage and the undifferentiated ultimate reality, which is referred to as Parabrahman in Vedanta? We do not know. That such stages exist stands to reason and follows from the facts that the suns do not occupy fixed positions, but probably revolve around other stars, that solar systems are parts of bigger units called galaxies, and these, in their turn, are parts of still bigger units called universes. Whatever the relation which subsists between solar systems, galaxies, universes, and the cosmos is a whole, and their respective presiding deities, as a whole, and their respective presiding deities, and astronomy is bringing more and more light to bear on this fascinating question. The conception of the cosmos being studied with innumerable solar systems. I'm sorry, this is a long sentence, and it just keeps having commas, and it has parentheses and stuff like that, so I'll try to read it the best I can. Let me start again. Whatever the relation which subsists between solar systems, galaxies, universes, and the cosmos as a whole, and their respective presiding deities, and astronomy is bringing more and more light to bear on this fascinating question, the conception of the cosmos being studied with innumerable solar systems, and each solar system being presided over by an Īśvara, is in itself a tremendously grand idea whose truth is based not on mere poetic fantasy or fancy, but definite knowledge of adepts of occultism. So he's saying, yeah, people have experienced this, and this is what they see as the truth, and that's what they're relaying to us here. And to think that the presiding deity of each of these solar systems is a Puruṣa-viśeṣa who has passed, I love this, who has passed through the evolutionary cycle like every one of us. So this is our future if we keep engaging in this practice. Like, we'll actually end up presiding over a solar system, is basically what he's saying, if you get to the top rung of the ladder. Like every one of us, and attained to that inconceivably high level imparts a new significance to the idea of human evolution and places it on an entirely new basis. It really does. This is a fascinating line of thought, which could be pursued in different directions, but it is not possible to do so at this point. There is, however, one point which had better be cleared up before we proceed to consider the next sutra. What is the relation existing between the Īśvara of a solar system and the innumerable Puruṣas who are either undergoing pre-kaivalya evolution or are still associated with the solar system after attaining liberation? According to the Samkhya, each Puruṣa is a separate and independent unit of consciousness and remains so eternally. So the Puruṣas who are part of the evolutionary scheme in a solar system must be quite separate and independent of the Puruṣa-viśeṣa, who is its presiding lord according to this philosophy. So I guess we kind of spin off into our own solar systems? I mean, is that what he's saying? So the Puruṣas who are part of the evolutionary scheme in the solar system must be quite separate and independent. Yeah. I guess at some point you get your own solar system? Okay. But according to occult science, the different Puruṣas, those separate and independent units of consciousness, are yet in some mysterious manner one and share a common life and consciousness. The consciousness of the Īśvara provides a field in which the consciousness of the other Puruṣas in the solar system can function and unfold. Oh, so it's like a giant mother with wings, that creates the field within which everyone else can come up. Isn't that beautiful? It's just gorgeous. I love it. Where was I? They are nourished by his life and evolve from stage to stage until they themselves become fit to become Īśvaras of other newly created solar systems. So while they are in his solar system, they exist in him and are one with him in the most intimate manner, and yet they maintain throughout their independent center an individual uniqueness. This coexistence of oneness and separateness up to the last is one of those paradoxes of the inner life, which the mere intellect can never understand, and which only realization of our true nature can resolve. But we need not go further into this question. Enough has been said to show that the idea of Īśvara has not been artificially grafted on the basic Samkhyayan philosophy for the sake of convenience, but is an integral part of that larger philosophy of the East, which is based on the direct experience of an unbroken line of adepts and mystics, and of which Samkhya shows merely one facet. It should be remembered that the Yoga Sutras is a book of technical nature, giving the technique of yoga, and the essential doctrines of this basic philosophy must be understood if that technique is to be mastered properly. So forget about all that. Let's just focus on getting to the rock of kaivalya, which this is basically what the focus is. It does not mean that what is not given in the Yoga Sutras does not conform with the yogic philosophy upon which the book is based. The ideas in Yoga Sutras should be studied against the background of the total Eastern philosophy, and there's no justification for isolating them and studying them as if they were based on Samkhya or a separate and independent philosophy. Okay. Now we're moving on to Sutra 25. Tatra niratishayam sarvajna bijam. Tatra niratishayam sarvajna bijam. In him, the highest, unsurpassed, of the omniscient, the seed, the principle. In him is the highest limit of omniscience. This sutra gives us another idea with regard to Īśvara, the presiding deity of a solar system. The meaning of the sutra is easy to understand, but its real significance is generally missed. In order to understand the significance, it is necessary to bear in mind that each solar system is considered to be a separate and, to a great extent, independent manifestation of the one reality, corresponding with its isolation and separation by tremendous distances from other solar systems in space. We may imagine the innumerable solar systems scattered throughout the cosmos as so many centers in the consciousness of the one reality in manifestation, which is called Saguna Brahman in Hindu philosophy. Round each such center manifests the life of the Logos or Īśvara of that solar system, much in the same way as the life of a Puruṣa manifests around the center of his consciousness through a set of vehicles. Each solar system may thus be considered as a sort of reincarnation of its Īśvara, bringing into each new manifestation on a macrocosmic scale the samskaras of the previous solar systems which have preceded it. Since each solar system is the manifestation of the consciousness of its Īśvara, and each Īśvara represents a definite stage in the infinite unfoldment of consciousness in the world of the relative, it follows that his knowledge though almost unlimited in relation to the other Purushas in the solar system, must be considered to be limited in relation to the ultimate reality, of which he is a partial manifestation. Interesting. So there's more, right? More outside of the Īśvara presiding over the solar system. We should not forget that manifestation always implies limitation, and even in Īśvara is in the realm of Maya, however thin may be the veil of illusion which separates his consciousness from that of the Nirguna Brahman, who alone can be considered unlimited in the real sense of the term. So the omniscience of an Īśvara is a relative thing and has a limit, and it is the limit which is referred to, and it is this limit which is referred to in this sutra. Okay. It's not the end. I just want to read it again. In him is the highest limit of omniscience. Okay. Now, all the Purushas in a particular solar system or Brahmanda are undergoing a process of evolution, and the seed of omniscience in each Purusha is unfolding gradually. This unfoldment takes place slowly in the course of ordinary evolution. When yoga is practiced and consciousness begins to function on the subtler superphysical planes, the unfoldment is accelerated to a remarkable degree, and the boundaries of knowledge are suddenly enlarged at each successive stage in samādhi. When kaivalya is attained after dharma mega samādhi, a tremendous expansion of consciousness takes place, as pointed out in section 4, Sutra 31. Okay, so we're going to do section 4, Sutra 30, and section 4, Sutra 31. We'll jump to those in a minute. Even after the attainment of kaivalya, as has been pointed out already, the unfoldment of consciousness does not come to an end, and such unfoldment must be accompanied by a corresponding expansion of knowledge. Is there any limit to this expansion of knowledge in the case of the Purushas who are undergoing evolution in a solar system and whose consciousness is part of the consciousness of the Īśvara of that system? There must be. And that limit will naturally be the relative omniscience of the Īśvara, or the knowledge which is contained in his consciousness. No Purusha can cross the limit as long as he is a part of the solar system, and his consciousness is based, as it were, on the consciousness of the Īśvara, I'm assuming of that solar system. His knowledge may go on expanding and may appear infinite, but it cannot expand beyond the infinite knowledge of the Īśvara of the system, just as a fountain cannot rise higher than the reservoir which supplies water to it. So this is really interesting. There's a lot of questions we could ask here, isn't it? Okay, the recording just stopped because I had a call come in. I should have put my phone in airplane mode. Yeah, so, surrender, right? I mean, the answer is surrender. That's what they said. You have to surrender to the Īśvara of your solar system. You can't argue and fight. Like, well, what if I don't want to be in the solar system? What if I want to be in a different solar system with a different Īśvara, right? In order to get to that highest realm, you just have to surrender to what's happening, I guess. Anyway, let's go to Sutra 30 and 31 in section 4, which is kaivalya, because they said it was it describes it. Okay. All right, so Sutra 30 in the Kaivalya, which is section 4. Tata klesha karma nivritti. Thence afflictions, action, and its reactions, cessation, freedom from. Then follows freedom from kleshas and karmas, which is the state that the Īśvara is in. So that's what they were referring to. And then 31, tada sarva varana malapetasya yanasya nantyaj jayam alpam. I'm not familiar with that word at all. Then, in consequence of the removal of all obscuration and impurities, that which can be known through the mind is but little in comparison with the infinity of knowledge obtained in enlightenment. Isn't that lovely? Wonderful. Okay. Hope you're enjoying this. We'll move on to the next one in the next video.